This is the Source Seeker Hour. I am so blessed for everyone to join us today. Very important program. Of course, you know I will say that every program is very important, or the most important, as I would say. But all of our programs seek to give you pertinent information, profound information, information that is necessary to talk about. Our show today, the paradox of existence. What am I talking about? I'm talking about rising culture versus the negative forces that are challenging that rising culture. What type of negative forces? Media, they say a lot and it impacts our mind in so many ways. What other negative forces? We had direct forces. We had an insurrection. What was the meaning behind the insurrection? Most of us really know if we really look at it. So we have a lot of things. And then we have in our own community forces that can be negative. Within our own community, we still saddle sometimes with bright skin, dark skin, with the haves and the have-nots, with past petty jealousies and all of those different things that reflect a larger community. We come from a background of church, and we know that the ins and outs, sometimes they cause stress to us. So there's so many factors involved in our rise, our progress, and then the things that challenge us. And I will tell you from the paradox of existence, Blackness has a different concept than people can understand who are not necessarily Black. And then American Black has a different perspective. And we're gonna go into and share a lot of those different aspects. I mean, we could talk so much about this. And for those that do not know, I have a written series of this subject, The Paradox of Existence. You can look for it on Facebook. But it's so important that we look at these different aspects. And at this time, I would like to bring in our guests to share more about who they are, and then also their thoughts on this subject. Sister Kamaria, can you start, please?
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Kamaria Speaks. I'm excited to join you all on the Source Seeker this evening as we unpack the layers of the Black male and the psychology all involved. I'm excited to be here. It is a privilege, it is an honor, and I thank you. Very brief, quick background. I have 8 years experience of public school teaching. And this fall, I am very excited to share that I'm transitioning into a small business / digital learning from home, where I will unpack financial literacy, health and wellness, and actually uncomfortable racial conversations. And I have not truly shared that with everybody, but that's where I'm headed this fall. And very quick, brief summary of my background and what it is I do.
All right, my sister, thank you very much. Brother Brian, Kefing, what would you like me to say, Kefing or Brian?
Kefing, my brother.
All right, my brother. Brother Kefing, share with us a little bit about yourself, and then give us some of that strong background that you would think about on this particular subject.
Well, thank you, first of all, my brother, for having me. And it's a pleasure to meet one of our beautiful Black ones, Sister Kamaria, who is also a part of this. My background is I've been a member of the Shrines of the Black Madonna since 1975. Joined in Detroit, functioned in Kalamazoo, Atlanta, Georgia, and I moved back to Atlanta after I retired. So, which is where I am currently. And I'm currently the producer of Visions of Our People, which is my podcast. And just helped reinstitute the Community Service Center here in Atlanta that our Holy Patriarch, Jim Baby Ajiman, the founder of the Shrines of the Black Madonna, had started through the with the help of Cardinal Amanifu. And so I'm working with that to reconnect with the community so we can provide resources that our community so desperately need. And I'm glad to be here, my brother. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here and sharing with us. I want to talk about a recent trip that I had to Memphis, Tennessee. There were some things that I know about, but there were so many things that I didn't know about. Even growing up at the time that I grew up in the struggle, and there's so much out there. And as I was sharing with you pre-show, in teaching my son, he comes across and he does, I guess he doesn't encounter racism. He didn't encounter that, hey, we're better than you, and this is why this is the way it is, kind of understanding. I mean, I guess I understood it on an intellectual level, and I was a reader. However, there's something missing there that it just doesn't click. So I took him on this trip, and we went to Little Rock, where the Little Rock Nine were, and he saw that. But when we finally got to Memphis, he really saw on the walls of the Civil Rights Museum at the Lorraine Motel so much of the history. And of course we were in front of the motel where Dr. King was shot and so forth. We saw all those things. But I really wanted to share with him, it's not we just being sensitive as your mother and father trying to share with you kind of the way things are. We wouldn't be having all of this stuff on the wall in this way if we were just being sensitive. A lot of times kids think that their parents don't know what they're talking about. I know I went through that when I was a young man and I had to come to grips. Finally, at the end, I revered my dad. I understood that he had survived in this world 90 years and he had raised all of us. And hey, this man is brilliant. So I'm trying to find ways. And if I can find ways to share these kind of pictures with my son, I may could share with other people also. So how does what's happening in the media and the things going on and the projections in school, let's talk about it. Critical race theory is one of the things that goes with how they want history to be represented. So how do all these things that are happening, how do they affect our minds as Black people? Sister Kamaria.
Well, there is so much to unpack with that statement. It is a powerful one, and that kind of thing has these chapters. But once again, it is a privilege and an honor to be asked to speak on the topic of Black men specifically, and how it impacts, how the media psychology impacts them today in this world. I think at the bottom line is that the white supremacist narrative has watered down the textbooks. Let's just start right there. They have watered down the version of events, and they have done it to a way that amplifies their voices in a less extreme manner. And our Black boys first of all, are not being raised in the public school system with an accurate depiction of what traumas we face. And the counseling, and from experience, I know some of the counselors on those campuses, they are also not given the proper tools to help Black boys, to help them deal with those traumas generationally, ancestrally, that have impacted them in the classroom today. And so when we see our Black boys acting out, when we see them being disrespectful to Black women in the media, when we see them refusing to follow the traditional structural rules of a public school system created by white people.
Mhm.
When we see them rebel against the standards of society, I think the public school system is so quick to place the blame on a 5-year-old.
Mhm.
And very often they're not looking within to break down the divide. And I know I've said a lot, so I'm going to conclude by saying that the miseducation of our Black boys in the educational system does play an impact on the disrespect in the media, with them acting out, with their lyrics being being on the extreme side. All of that does connect and play a role, and not everybody can see that. Not everyone can see the historic white supremacist ideologies and the impact that it has on our Black boys when they become Black men. And then, you know, a whole nother chapter is the abandonment of the Black fathers. That's a whole nother chapter, but I'm very interested in researching more for myself the impact of white supremacist structure on the Black male. So
let me interject this real quick as we talk about this. So there were 3 events happened. 1, we had a slight little fender bender. 2, we were stopped by a small city cops. And the 3rd one that was a negative was we stopped in a city. I don't want to say the name wrong, but we came to this, what was it, a Whataburger late night? And so I'm listening to the person that I'm talking to on the intercom, and then I get up there and I'm looking for my money, and it sounds like the same voice. And I look around, it's a guy with a beard with a woman's voice, and it shocked me. And I go back to my point that the images that we see in today that are becoming normalized have an effect upon us as a people. Now, I know this is slightly controversial a little bit, but I think that's a part of progressive Black growth that we have to talk about what the influences on us. I'm not talking about people who are natural, but I'm talking about people who are confused and may be swayed one way or the other. Am I going down a wrong road? I want to go back to you, Kamaria, and if you can come a little closer, maybe.
well, I think what you are describing is the growing presence of the Black transgender community, where a little boy or a little girl grows up at a very young age and they don't feel like they are the body they were given at birth. And so this is certainly a controversial subject. There are some Black traditional conservative families and human beings who completely disagree with the narrative that a transgender person was assigned the wrong gender at birth, but that is the narrative that community speaks to. My responsibility as an educator is not to act out of, my instinct is like something seems a little bit off, or something doesn't seem normal to me because it's not normal for me to view a transgender person. So that's my instinct. Like, what's going on here? You know, they stand out, and let's just be honest. But that's my instinct. But my responsibility as an educator is to absorb more and research more of that narrative and to engage more with the transgender community, because a lot of people say Black Lives Matter, but that community is left to shambles. They are left to fend for themselves and get kicked out of their homes around age 16. They're on the streets, they're prostituting, they have nowhere to turn. A lot of churches turn one of those passive aggressive eyes, and they feel that. They feel they have nowhere to turn. And so One thing that's really important to me with the LGBTQIA community as a Black educator, it is really important for me to let them know they have a safe space. If they ever need to out how they're feeling, I want to be that Black emotional safe space for that community. And so I just want to love on them as their auntie and just help them learn, give them financial literacy skills and help them wellness skills. We don't have to spend all day talking about the transgender part of your being, maybe. Let's just get you a job and put you on some professional dress to get you a job today. That's just a human being in me. I'm pretty sure it's a female in me. I'm pretty sure the Black male will have a completely different perspective than I about the demasculation of our Black males. They may feel that narrative, but me, I'm just Mama Bear, and I just love my kids, and I just love them.
Well, I just want to say the point I bring up in this is that because of the influence of the world that we live in, and the psychology, I'm not harping on those that have an issue as far as something that they're working out really within themselves. Let me just say it like that. I'm talking about the influence of society. Before I get in more trouble, Brother Kefing, take some of the trouble and make comments on that, as well as what I was talking about, the trip to Memphis.
Well, my brother, I would like to commend you, first of all, on taking the opportunity to take your son on that trip, because that's very necessary in terms of our self-education of ourselves. We need to be educated about our history. And most people, like the Jewish community, they say, have a saying, we shall never forget. But we have been encouraged to disconnect from our history, because when we know what our history is, it puts the spotlight on who our colonizers are and were, and what they did to us, and how they were able to build power off of our labor and off of the land of indigenous people. So quite naturally, they don't want us to learn our history, because then we know the truth about ourselves and the truth about our condition. And what I mean by that is, for instance, people like to talk about the wealth gap, but nobody talks about where did the wealth gap come from? It came from us losing over almost 300 years, over 250 years of wages. So that's how they got ahead. And then they had free land. So if you give any business free land and labor, unless they're complete imbeciles, they're going to be successful. They're going to build, because they don't have an overhead that everybody else has. And if we don't understand that part of our history in terms of connecting, not just with our ancestors here in America, but with our ancestors on the motherland, and how that goes back thousands of years before Greece, and until that's how we need to re-educate ourselves and our children, so that trips that you took your son on, that should be a part of our regular curriculum. We shouldn't have to go outside like you colonizers. They don't have to go outside the school system to learn about their history. It's in the school system, and even though it's based on a bunch of lies, that's what they learn, and that's what they want to maintain. That's why they're against what they call critical race theory, which is just our history. And if we buy into that, we're telling ourselves and telling ourselves and our people, we should learn our experience, the Black experience. Our experience is not the same as your experience. So for me to put my hand over my heart for the flag and the national anthem and all that kind of stuff, I can understand colonizers doing that, because America has been great for you. It sets you up with power and all that, but it's done just the opposite of that for me. So my position is not going to be the same as your position. And don't tell me that that gorilla in the room is not a gorilla. That is a gorilla. You know, so the media, the power of the media has been set up, is so powerful that it's had the ability to convince us that that gorilla in the room is not a gorilla. And we need to get back to like Malcolm did. He self-educated himself. So that's why it was hard for colonizers to pin him down, because his education was not tied to the propaganda and the education that they set up for us to produce what you so-called an employee and an ignorant person, a person who's dumb about their own history. That's what the education system is set up to be. So I didn't mean to be too long-winded on that whole piece, but just in terms of the power of the media and all of the institutions that have been set up by colonizers, they all have one purpose, and that's to maintain what Sister Kamaria was talking about, the system of white supremacy. And if we don't, like Neely Fuller said, if we don't understand racism and white supremacy, everything else will only confuse us. And so we need to make sure that our children know who, you know, what their history is, who they are, and in spite of all of the things that the colonizers have thrown at us, we're still one of the top in terms of a nation. We're still like in the top 12, maybe, as a nation, you know, wealth-wise, and that's without reparations. If you add reparations to that, even with all that we've gone through, we're still number as a people. That just goes the resiliency of us as a people and how great we are as a people. Anybody else would have folded a long time ago, but even against all of those odds. I'm sorry.
Shorted out for a second, but I still want to ask this question when you come back in. Okay, there you go. So are we gaining ground? Have we gained ground? I know we have gained ground, but given this constant and this current onslaught, Brother Kefing, have we gained ground? You talk about it sometimes in terms of a war. Are we gaining ground?
Well, I guess we have to qualify that question when you say gaining ground. If you look at, like I'm here in Atlanta, if you look at Black folks, it looks like we gained a lot of ground because we have a lot of stuff. We got fine houses, we got fine cars, you know, we dress well, we look good in spite of what we've gone through, you know, as a people. But when you go to the banks, we don't control the banking system. When you go to a school, our children are still learning Eurocentric education. When you go to the hospitals, they're still controlled by colonizers. All of the major institutions, except for the Black church, are controlled by other folks. All of the stores in our community, when we go to them, those are people in our communities taking our money out. They have no relationship with the community. You don't even see them. It's almost like they tunnel into these stores and you don't even see them come out. You know, and they have no relationship with the community except for they're taking our money out. And I just said all that to say it looks like we've made progress, but from a power position, no, we haven't gained any power. We're still powerless.
At this point, if I can interject, because we just had a show on building generational wealth. And I had to point out, if you look at places like Wall Street, Black Wall Street, you look at places like what happened in Little Rock and 100 other places and cities across the country, we would have much more of that generational wealth if an enemy or somebody else had not done that. So we have to add that to the factors of the progress of Black people. In a lot of ways, we have to say, hey, we super bad. We super bad. And we got to congratulate ourselves because look at all that we have gone through and we are still progressing and moving forward. Sister Kamaria, the same conversation. What about things like different things happening? Kanye West, the baby, other people out there. I'm not saying that those are the most negative examples or that they're negative at all. It's a matter of perspective. But what progress are we making in the rise in Black culture against all the negative things that have happened and are happening?
Oh my goodness. I'm excited to unpack that's I'm excited to unpack some of the things that you mentioned. Short answer is Kanye West is a complex Black male. I'm almost grateful to God that he has the platform that he does, because he does what I call uncomfortable truths half the time. He made that very extreme comment that, we're still slaves, but in some levels we are. And the Black culture is not ready to accept that. And he has made some inflammatory comments as well that he needs to be held accountable for in order for our community to properly heal. So I don't agree with everything Kanye has said, and he has to be careful as well, because he is on such a international platform that we're going to look to him. His white fans are going to look to him as the Black way. And so he has to be very careful and mindful of what it is he shares in the public media. But I had the pleasure to meet him in Houston, and I follow him on social media, and I'm proud of the work Kanye is doing with the Christian community. He has a small bubble of people who really support him in that area, and I do as well. He has to deal with the death of his mother as his unhealed traumas, and he's dealing with mental health and illness, which is another passion of mine with our Black community as an educator. And so I just want to see our Black men win, period. And like I always say on my personal page, how powerful is your Black love? How deep is your Black love? Will you love Black men through prison, through mental health breakdowns? Will you love them through inflammatory comments that they progress on social media? Will you love them through all the dark areas, not just when they're winning? And see that, but that's just me, and I can't speak for everybody. Some things that the public personas give in the media is unforgivable. Sometimes they don't want to hold themselves accountable, which is a whole other chapter. But the baby, I was very, very troubled by his statements. I feel I had a lot of names that I wanted to call him, but I won't share them here on this platform. But I'm very disappointed with the baby, his recent comments. I pray and hope that, he's had some branding deals set out, from what I've been told, from his inflammatory comments about the LGBTQIA community. So I just pray moving forward that the baby, he has his platform is growing. I pray that in the future is more mindful, and they can choose to focus on the positive things they're doing in the communities. Jay-Z and Diddy and Beyonce, they spend their time pouring back into the Black community, giving grants to small businesses, giving an app available, this younger generation, new apps. And on there, I think Jay-Z and Diddy has the listing of many small Black-owned businesses. So there's a lot of notables doing those types of projects. And so I hope the baby, when he gets out of this funk, he can get back more into the community, and find ways. So he needs to unpack his traumas. Some Black boys have been arrested. Some Black boys have been disrespected or inappropriately addressed by other males, and they may have some unhealed traumas to deal with in that realm, which is a whole other chapter. And I've said a lot, but I wanted to finalize by saying, as far as the media's impact, media is super powerful, man. It is so powerful. It is so powerful that I'm nearing 40 years old, I'm 39. It is so powerful that I had to take a 7-day cleanse myself. That was very tough for me to do, because I love posting on Facebook and Instagram, but I had to take a step back. And I haven't had regular TV watching in nearly 8 months. And so I've really been doing the sacrifices necessary, trying to pour myself back into Black books. And I'm gonna show y'all a Black book that I got. And It's Hip Hop Speaks Children
Oh,
Celebration
okay.
with the beat. So
And
I
so
kept,
what you think about the book?
well, I've opened it, and I just think that it's written by Mickey Giovanni. I think that the hip hop community really could benefit from reaching out to our children in a more positive light.
Mhm.
And I hope in the future that everybody takes a 7-day cleanse from social media
Mhm.
and get back to the root of their own core values and how we can pour back to the community in a positive
May I interject this? At this particular time, you know that in the industry, there are a lot of others with influence over what is put out on radio
Mhm.
and what would be put in a book that would be put in the curriculum. So they may want to do hip hop related to kids, but there are other people involved that may not want that, just like they may not want critical race theory. They may not want us to actually be able to teach our kids in a language that they understand.
You know what? And that is so true. And this is particularly
That doesn't
why
mean it can't be sold low. That doesn't mean it couldn't reach the people. There are other ways besides utilizing their resources. And that comes to my next question. How can we make things work in an environment that subliminally wants to affect our mind to not believe in ourselves? Sister Kamaria?
I'm gonna let Kefing Moore start in on this one, and I'm gonna come in just a second.
All right, Brother Kefing.
All right, my sister. When you talk about media and its influence on us, that's feeding. We eat food, but that's also a part of nourishment. What you take in the media. If you're listening to music all day that's talking about B's and H's and I'm a shoot you and all that kind of stuff, and then you can turn on the TV. Now it's hard to turn on TV without somebody being shot or killed or what have you. So our children, unlike my generation coming up, you had 3 networks: ABC, NBC, and CBS. Now our children are in a whole different world where they have all kind of different information coming at them at the same time. So it can be much more confusing to a child in this environment than when we were coming up, and I'm dating myself because I guess the grandfather on here at the particular time. But I just said that to say it's more important, more so now. When I came up, it was a lot simpler. Now it's a lot more complicated. That we have, first of all, love in the community, and also family and community, however that family looks. And part of like I mentioned before, that the whole media system is tied to the white supremacist system. And one of their biggest fear is, and you all can correct me on which rap group came up, the fear of the Black Planet. I think it was NWA. That's their biggest fear. If we don't understand that, we're going to be losing all the time, because they understand if we come together, then and take back our resources like we did in Black Wall Street, and like we did when we came off of those plantations and we built communities, and then they came up with integration to break those communities down. Because when we're together, when we're around ourselves, when we connect to our ancestors, because we were the original creators. We didn't have to go outside of Africa to steal from other people, because we had everything we needed in Africa. And we still have everything we need as a people, even in the face of what the colonizers have done to us. And they know that if we ever get the mind of our ancestors to come together as a people and do for ourselves, it's a wrap for them. It's a wrap for all these foreigners in our community, all these people feeding off of us. And I'm not mad at them for doing that, because they're taking advantage of us, while kicking us while we're down. But when we raise up and lift ourselves up as a people and come together and do the things for ourselves that we were created to do, then we will put ourselves back in a position that we're supposed to be in, where God created us as the first people, the first nation, a great nation. And we can be that again if we come together in unity. And that's why the media, business, and all these institutions are against that, because they don't want us to come together, because we're a cash cow for them.
Most definitely. And if I recall correctly, it's a fear of a black planet. It'll take a nation of million to hold us back, and that's Public Enemy and Chuck D. Yes.
Before your time, Kamaria.
In the trip to Memphis, again, I saw so much. I saw, of course, in Memphis, there's Beale Street, and if you haven't been there, you should check it out. And you know, it shines at night, and during the day, you know, they have all they had where BB King's club, where when he passed, they had a eulogy and a party right there in front of his club, right there off of Beale Street. And so it's very, very lively. And of course, at the Lorraine Motel, that's where Dr. King was shot. You see just how normal of a place it was. I mean, you're in normal, like I tell my son, I say, hey, every place is normal until something happens there. Then it becomes a part of that thing, that event that happened. So there were so many things that we saw in so many different ways. We didn't have time to see it all, but we had a great time. This is the Source Seeker Hour. This is the 93rd episode. I'm your host, Baruti Carl Alexander, the Source Seeker, which means I like to seek out and understand things of the world. That's what Source Seeker means. I like to understand, to get a real sense of it, and to be able to convey that new light that I have seen in a way that is expressive. And as I said, this is my 93rd show, and we've been doing it. We started in the studio, and then we continued online here. And we're going to keep improving. We're going to keep growing. And our next two shows after this show will be hosted by Bishop George Sanders, and they will be the soul of America. He's a minister. He's going to look at the culture, as well as he's going to look at the soul from a religious aspect and from a spiritual aspect. So those will be our next two episodes. And every 2 weeks we have the Source Seeker Hour here, and you can come in and join. Most times we're going to be connected to Facebook and be able to do a live episode. This one we wanted to do on recording and then have come out about 15 minutes after we finish. So you'll be seeing it. All right, we're at the end, close to the end, but we want to have a long statement and a perspective and a picture of the paradox of existence. There are so many things that people don't understand. Now, we're all human beings, so we have that in common. But what we see and how it affects us, in the Civil Rights Museum, they have the movie and the background about Dr. Kenneth Clark and his experiment with black dogs. And if you know about this, he had a black dog, he had a white dog, and he had little kids come up, little 4-year-old girls, and ask them which one was pretty. And they always chose the white dog. Which one is ugly? They always chose the black dog. And we're talking about before that mentality, 3-4 years old, before it had really even cemented. But at that early age, and that was part of the study that they used for Brown versus the Board of Education and the new civil rights and education laws and changes. So there's so many things, and that's so impactful on our mind. the things that come into our mind and the things that, and how they affect us. And we should be aware of this at all times. And a part of what this show does is like to present these things, these informations, so that we can get a greater understanding. My sister Kamaria, would you like to share about that perspective of the paradox of existence as human beings?
The paradox of existence as human beings. Brother, can you please clarify what you mean by that statement?
What did you, I didn't hear. What I mean is, if I got you right, as human beings, we have to make decisions on what is right, what is wrong. And our perspective as human beings is affected by the world. Just listening at the word Black. For us, when we feel that we're around, let's say a group of white people, we feel a certain way. But if we're around a certain group of Black people, we hear that word, it has a different connotation. And we have to, a lot of times, have masks. At our job, we have to have a certain mask around this community. And there's so many factors involved. And in my articles and in a lot of my conversations, I try to bring these things out about how it affects our mentality and how we go about the things that we do. And it's a part of the trauma that we have had as Black people, but it is a part of our rising, how we've overcome all of these things that, as Kefing, you said earlier, they would have destroyed a lot of other people and a lot of other races. So this is the perspective I'm giving. And since we're at the end, share your statement. And then if anybody wants to reach you, share that also.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I just feel like in general that the black voice has been silenced. So if I can connect any type of, make a connection with the feedback you are giving is about the state of our world, is that our Black voice has been silenced. And the reason why you will see us, they call it code switching, when you speak a certain way around your own versus the outside world. On the surface, it just seems micro. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal in our community, but deep down, it's a mistrust for people who don't look like us, and that goes across the board in the medical community. It goes across the judicial system. Kefing Moore mentioned the major institutions. We have a mistrust of them, and so we don't feel we feel like our voice is silenced in those institutions, and so we feel a lot more comfortable. That's why white people be tripping like, why you just talking about Black people this and Black people that? I even had a friend tell me, a white friend from college, one of my only friends, and she's still my friend today, by the way. She said, if I, she was listening to India Arie's Brown Skin, and I love that song. That's one of my favorite albums and songs. And she said, Kamaria, if a white person had revealed a song White Skin, the whole world will blow up. But she has to understand that historically, white people did separate us. They had to just go back to the foundation of the colored versus white water fountains. It was the white supremacist institutions that set up the separation of us so they could let everybody know that they were in power and we were second class. And so, of course, there's those like Brown Skin, National Association for Colored People. Of course, these organizations exist and these narratives exist, and even in our music and our poetry, because that is the white supremacist system. That's their foundation. We didn't create it. And so, my friend's ignorance is her ignorance, and I deal with her. But
we lost. Oh, there you go. Okay, you're back.
Okay. But I just want to finalize, because you asked me to respond, you asked me to finalize. I wanted to finalize by saying, first of all, thank you for having me on. I know it's
Very
hard to reach,
welcome.
but I'm so glad that I was able to join you guys this evening because it really helps with my cause this fall by adding in a digital course that just breaks down racism and this systemic racism in kid appropriate ways, which is going to be a challenge, but I'm open to that challenge. And so I thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak on something that is so near and dear to my heart. And that is just elevating us as Black people and people of color, Asians, Hispanics, Latinos, just elevating our voices, the LGBTQIA community, to a place where they feel heard, valued, loved, and respected. And so thank you for having me on, and I'm looking forward to the next conversation.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Still, we're working on many different types of shows. We even going to have us a chemistry, health, and food nutrition. We've had many of those shows. So if you're interested in anything like that, always look for our schedule and upcoming show and events. Brother Kefing, the subject of paradox of existence and being a Black man and surviving, and what the things and the challenges and the new rising. Talk about that.
Well, first of all, I am so inspired by our sister Kamaria being, as young as she is and having the worldview that she has, that she's exhibited, through her conversation, and that in itself is inspiring to know that, we have some young folks who get it and are still getting it, and they are the ones that we definitely have to connect to if we're going to continue to survive, thrive, and grow as a people. But I just want to go back in terms of the paradox. The paradox was created by colonialists so that they could build power. And the paradox is they have power and we don't have power. And that's the paradox that they want to maintain. And by those young children already at 2, 3, whatever ages they were, already have accepted the Declaration of Black inferiority. They've already accepted Black inferiority. That just goes.
Yes, it is. Okay. Continue your point, Brother Kefing.
Yeah, that just shows. No problem. That just shows the power of the media, where it starts. It starts in the womb, because your parents have already been niggerized and taught to hate themselves. So through that whole energy exchange, children are born with that. And then you're born into a system. God, of course, didn't create us that way, but we're born into a system that everything is set up to maintain that paradox. And if we don't do anything else as source keepers, as persons, as human beings, as a Black man, it's incumbent upon me to teach my children, my community, everybody that I know, that we're at war. We're at war for the minds of our children, so that they're not put into a prison pipeline system that helps to maintain the slave system, because that's all that is. Prisons is just the modern day slave plantation, and the system is set up so that our men, young boys, don't realize their gifts and their purpose, so that they can become what our holy patriarch taught us to become who we truly are. And that's what God created us to be, to discover the kingdom within. So
science of Kua.
The science of Kua. So it's our duty. They're not going to stop doing that. And they being colonized, they've been doing that for centuries. So for us to run around and try to convince them and march and love and pray and hug and all, and I'm not mad at them for what they are, even though we should be mad, but that just takes our focus off of what we need to do. We need to focus on building strong Black families, strong Black communities, a strong Black nation that we control from the cradle to the grave and from the top to the bottom, that we control. We need to have our own system that a sanctuary, where our children can come back to and grow up in and be who they were supposed to be. And that's our mission. And that's the kingdom.
I have to say, we've had that before, but we have to have the legal, the physical, and the financial means to maintain it. And a part of that is helping to create the proper image for our children to see, so that they understand generational wealth and they understand the need to maintain it. Because if you have your own community, you can have your falls and so forth, but you can protect yourselves. You can protect yourselves better and not have to engage with those on the outside. So it's about building circles of love, if you will. And
Amen.
Very important. Did you want to share anything about how people can reach you if they want to know more?
Sure. Was that directed at me, my brother?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Sure. My email is Kefing Moore, KEFINGMOOR at AOL.com. Reach me that way. You can also contact me on YouTube at Kefing Moore also, where I have a series of different videos that I've put out. And also, you can also see some of my podcasts that I've done for visions of our people. And I have a podcast I'm getting ready to drop in the next week with Walamo Abasi and Bishop Asha here, who are doing some great work here in the Atlanta area. And so I just want to share that with you. But those are the platforms that you can reach me on. Of course, I'm on Facebook at Kefing Moore, also Brian Kefing Moore.
Peace and power, brother. As always, thank you very much.
Like power.
Thank you, brother. Sister Kamaria, did you want to share about your company that you had? I believe last time you were sharing, and any way that people can talk to you if they want to help. What would you like to share?
Yes, absolutely. I will be starting some digital online running courses at Kamaria Speaks, Kamaria Speaks, Speaks. I am still, putting it together and finalizing some things, but my goal is to start digital classes by September the 1st. And I'm really excited, and I can't wait for that chapter to finally turn. And so people can follow me on YouTube. They can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Would love to have new people to tune in and stop by. Congratulations to Mr. Moore on his podcast. That's a huge deal. And very happy for you. And I pray that, that goes well. And I think that was all I wanted to state.
Well, thank you very much. That's Kamaria Speaks. Yes, ma'am.
There's always more to share, but there'll be other conversations for it.
Yes, ma'am. That's why it's Kamaria Speaks, and that's your brand. And she's going to be speaking, and contact her and talk to her. And this is the Source Seeker Hour. We've had a great show, our 93rd, and we will continue. We will continue bringing you pertinent, profound information. I'm your host, Baruti Carl Alexander. Until next show, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.